So, hello everyone. We have Christopher here today in our podcast. He is the former coach from Team Heretics, and it's a pleasure to have you, Chris.
Thanks for having me on.
So, we will talk about some topics here today. If you want to start saying what is your background, how you get to the point we are today.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Christopher Lee. I go by SeeEl. Chris is easier for sure. And I've been coaching professionally for 3 years, or 3.5 years now, going on to 4. I come from a region called Oceania, which includes New Zealand and Australia. And, now I believe they've merged into like the PCS region, so like Taiwan and whatnot. Previously I worked for ESL as a player manager. I also worked in a fintech startup as an intern. And I'm also a startup founder for an edutech company, edutech and coaching, esports coaching company called Parable.com.
Yeah, I look for that. We will talk about it later. I think it's
Yeah,
very
sure.
interesting.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a couple interviews about that that are publicly known about it, publicly known. But yeah, that's basically me. I worked my way up from the bottom. I started in 2020 for an Australian team. Told myself, okay, let's put 1 year into esports. At the time, I had I almost finished my double major in economics finance. And I said, hey, look, let's put it all into esports. Give it 1 year, see how it goes. If I make it outside of Australia and I make it to North America or Europe, then we keep going. If not, we go back to studying. And I went from Oceania to North America, where I worked for the Golden State Warriors, so the Golden Guardians. And then I went to work for Team Vitality in the French League, and then eventually to Rogue LEC within 2 years, in which I won my first championship, European Championship in 2022, summer of 2022. Also went to the World's quarterfinals. And then this year, obviously, wasn't the best in terms of results, but top 4 in summer.
Yeah, it's a pretty good result. I mean, this year has been a pretty so with the change of the format, so it's been kind of surprising. Anyone could get to the top. So I mean, you played really well, and a few words. What will be like? What was your main role at Team Heretics? Also, like
So,
your
so my title is strategic coach for Team Heretics. I would say that, all things strategical, I have some say in it, especially when it comes to building out systems to increase cohesion, to increase on-stage performance for our players. So, for example, in this sequence, how do we as a team play? That's kind of where my specialty comes in. It really depends on the team that you're working on, but for Heretics, it was like that. Peter really liked to get himself involved in the draft as well as leading reviews, and so I took a step back and played a little bit more of a supporting role this year. But I would say, for example, in Rogue, I had a lot more of a say when it came to reviewing games, when it came to building up systems, and Freddie was more specialized in drafting. So I mean, that's my official title. Obviously, it will depend on who you work with, like the head coach and how they prefer to operate.
it seems work in a different way. So
And something special about esports is that generally when you look at head coaches of big sports teams, they have 20, 30, 40 coaches. Like honestly, a huge team of coaches. That work with each player, obviously depending on the sport. Obviously, like a smaller team sport like basketball versus football is very different. But in esports, the roles are not entirely defined or set in stone. It depends on the team.
I mean, it's not even defined if it's a sport. It's not how is it regulated. So it's very difficult to. It's not like traditional sport. So,
but I would say, I mean, this year I had a lot to do with building our systems and how we play, how we communicate, and how things are ran strategically.
And also going back again, how did you get there? How when you told me that one day you decided to let's try to get like in I assume that you loved esports, you played video games, right? So you said it's the dreams of nearly every gamer. Like let's try to build a career around it. So what were your first steps to get to keep growing and keep getting far?
Yeah, I mean, like to be completely truthful, I had no intention of coaching professionally initially. I was a esports. Sorry, I was a finance and economics major. Before that, I had studied law and marketing, and I was just trying to find what I enjoyed doing. And at the time, I'd finished my internship for a fintech company that specializes in crowdsourcing information and kind of gamifying the learning concepts of like investing, called Sprinklebit. And I realized that, I realized pretty early on, but I realized at that point, especially so after speaking to so many intelligent people, that I had no real weapon when it came to facing like society, facing what society had to throw at me. If you really want to live, I think a successful, or not, I wouldn't define, I'd say like a comfortable life, both financially and kind of outside of the finances in terms of like general respect from society and whatnot. I think you need some sort of weapon
Yeah.
that you can call your own. I don't think that I was particularly book smart. I wasn't gifted, academically, and I didn't really apply myself either because just of personal circumstance as well as just what fit me as a human being. So that was out of the window. Like I didn't graduate from Harvard. Everyone and their nan has a degree nowadays, right?
Yeah.
They have a degree in something. And so what weapon could I call my own when I leave university and I go out to the workforce, right? So could it be that I specialize in, data, right? Oh, I mean, I'm terrible at that. And so that's kind of what I wanted to find. I wanted to find my own weapon, something that I could specialize in, something that I could call my own, and really develop that. So for example, if I mean, in this case, it was esports. If I study esports, I could take it to my financial investment. If I work as an investment banker, I could be a financial analyst or an investment banker that specializes in esports, right?
Yeah.
And same for data analysis or whatever I decide to do after university. So that's kind of how I dabbled in esports. And in the process of dabbling, I had explored the idea of management, esports management and esports coaching. And that was kind of the start of it. I was a bronze 5 League of Legends player. I had
I think
actually,
as everyone, like
yeah,
as
no, but
we start everyone.
I was bronze 5 0 LP when Iron didn't exist. Bottom 0.1% of players. I was
Yeah.
the epitome of a casual gamer. I would leave games in the middle of games to go to school. And if anything, I had been more of an FPS player. I'd played Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Not that great at that either, but I was like Legendary Eagle before the rank changes. So pretty okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was like, okay, what's the biggest esport and why esports? Well, at the time, it was growing like 100% year by year in terms of revenue and in terms of like the interest. And at the same time, it's like, what is the biggest esports? Well, League of Legends specifically was growing at this rate, right? So let's specialize in League of Legends. Let's understand League of Legends, or let's understand the most successful esports game, so that whatever I decide to transition to, I understand it the best, or I
Yeah.
understand how the structures work. And coaching was an obvious one because it's not easy to manage esports teams. You can't just have no degree and just turn up to a team and say, "Hey, I want to manage a team." And so I studied the game for about 6 months, where I climbed from, bronze 5 to actually, I think at the time I ended up being like gold or something like that, but from gold to like diamond 3, diamond 2. Then I said, okay, let's explore this further. Started coaching for free, started studying coaching, talking to other coaches in the scene, realized that this entire space was incredibly underdeveloped. I still think it is in terms of compared to traditional sports.
Yeah, because
And so,
I think it's important to mention that you don't need to be like really high level to be coach. I
yeah,
mean, because it also has this like mechanical component. I
yeah,
mean, because you can be, as you say, gold or diamond, and you still can understand very well the game and how it works. So be a very
yeah.
good coach, and then not be so good at playing because there are a lot of other elements that taking part.
Well, I wouldn't actually say that I was very good at coaching at the time. Just for me, I differentiate that the game knowledge aspect to actual coaching. Coaching is as an art form. Coaching is a skill set. It's a way that, because I mean, the way that you present information, the way that you teach information, the way that you create team culture, the way that you kind of enhance people's strengths and understand how and when you should be speaking to players is in itself an art form. Developing a team is a completely different story altogether as well. So for me, I actually differentiate those two. There's a big difference between being a really good coach, or having really good coaching skills versus not understanding the game. And to be an esports coach, you kind of need both.
Yeah.
And so what I had realized is the coaching skill side of things was severely underdeveloped. Most coaches were just there by chance. They happened to get jobs by chance because they were
Or
in the
use
industry super early.
ex-players that you
Yeah, right.
that
But
as you said have a lot of knowledge of the game but
yeah,
doesn't know how to get like a group of people to keep working, because
I mean,
at the end they are just kids playing, so it's very difficult.
yeah. So going back to 2018, I just looked at the history of traditional sports. I wasn't really a big team sports player myself. There was hundreds of years of history, or 100 years of history when it came to developing the coaching model, developing the infrastructure that exists today to get the fan base that it has today. And so to be a coach, you needed to train for years and years and years, whereas you didn't have that in esports. So what were some things that they were doing that were different from us? And that's kind of how I started to really delve into esports coaching. Obviously messed with it by playing a lot of solo queue and by teaching people for free. But when I had really started to explore what real efficient coaching methods were, that's when I think I started to elevate myself. And that's where I think everything started. I also looked a little bit into like traditional education. Of course, my degree was completely unrelated, but I had exposure to higher level education as well. It was very weird to me that none of these concepts were being applied. So I kind of made a post on Reddit detailing some efficient learning paradigms and kind of environments that you could give to yourself as well as others in order to improve at League of Legends. And that made the top page of Reddit at the time. Mark Merrill, the founder of Riot Games, he goes by Trindamere,
Yeah.
retweeted it. I didn't have a Twitter at the time. So I was like, oh, well, I guess this is kind of a chance for me to add something to my resume. I made a Twitter. I had like 12 followers. I DM'd him. I said, hey, at Mark Merrill, I'm the one that made this Reddit post. Would you like to be coached? He said yes, which is really insane if you think about kind of,
Yeah,
he's a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company or whatever, right? A president of a multi-billion-dollar
I
company.
will say that he will never even respond you. Like
Yeah,
I
but
thought like people like that would never look at that their
I mean,
DMs.
that's what most people assume, and I think that's the case with a lot of things. But as I said, my philosophy was that I'm not good at a lot of things. I want my own weapon, and any opportunity that could exist cannot be taken if you don't try,
Yeah.
right? So I didn't want to let something like that go. Someone told me in the Reddit comments that, as I said, Mark Merrill retweeted it, so I messaged him. He said yes. We booked a time. So then, I went off and coached him live on stream in front of like 450 people, 500 people. I had no idea what I was doing. Was completely nervous, and I was also quite, I would say, bad at the game as well. But yeah, I mean, that happened. And from that position, that gave me a lot of kind of exposure and access to more players and more people. And I think I learned a lot from kind of teaching these people and talking to these people and develop my skill set there. And I got to the point where I was coaching a lot of people to really, really, really high up in the ladder. So they went from master to grandmaster to challenger, working with me over the months. This is, I'd say, midway through 2018, mid to late 2018. And it got to the point where eventually some of them hit rank 1. And I started to get more and more kind of exposure through that, and realized that Oceania is a very small region as well. So I think my viewership was only like 70 at the time, but it was quite up there in terms of like that kind of region. And then I was like, all right, I had enough. That was interesting. That was fun. I have that in my resume now. So then I stopped. I actually didn't coach from that position. I was like, okay, I learned what it is to be an esports coach, kind of. Let's look at other avenues of esports and let's explore all the other areas of esports. So then I looked into tournament organization, and through my connection from streaming and teaching Mark Merrill and stuff like that, I got a job for ESL for the big tournament organizer that works in Rainbow Six and and CS:GO and stuff as a player
Yeah,
manager and translator because I spoke fluent Korean, and then I kind of worked under them and worked with teams like Mantis FPS / Cloud9, who had the best Korean Rainbow Six Siege team at the time. And then they were really, really happy with what I was doing. They said that I was the best that they had seen in all their tournaments and made good relationships with those people. And then eventually, one of the team managers that came over from C9 said, "Oh, wow, this guy's good." So then she even wrote me a recommendation to C9 and whatnot. And then I was like, okay, I had enough of esports management. I think I'm going to go back to studying. So yeah, my career almost ended there. That was, I think, August 2019. But then at the same time, I really enjoyed coaching. I realized I really enjoyed coaching. So I said, okay, let's just do this for fun as a hobby while you go to uni.
yeah.
You only have a year left. Let's finish it up. So I went back to coaching, and then I started coaching more people to rank 1. And then my reputation kind of spread, and then I got a job offer to go pro, which blew my mind. I was like, whoa. At the time, this was the one of the biggest brands in Oceanic Esports. It's called the Chiefs Esports Club. And I said, okay, well, I had enough of coaching at the time, but I wonder what it's like to coach a pro team.
Yeah, because until then you were like only with like individual players,
Yeah.
and this will be like jumping
Yeah.
to a full team.
So I was like, you know what? It probably wouldn't hurt to have experience coaching a pro team, even if it's in a small region like Oceania, because that's also something I can add to my resume when I go into finance. So I still was thinking about finishing my degree. So I said, can I do this part-time? And they said, no, you have to be on site full-time. And then I said, okay, what's the salary range? And they said 3,000 euros. I was like, per month? It's like, per year. So I was like, oh. And then I got a couple other offers at the same time as well. Actually, another offer came from Legacy, who ended up winning that year. They sold to another team, but they offered about 2 or 3 times that, but definitely nothing where you could live off. Right?
Yeah, definitely not.
And at that point, I had a bit of savings because I was working multiple jobs. Kind of didn't have, like, when I was younger, I had to kind of fend for myself from when I was 17. So I had a bit of savings, and I was like, oh, look, if I really need a little bit more money to live, I can use the savings. I think it's still a good experience. So let's take 1 year to learn the craft. And then I really enjoyed, coaching high level players. I learned a lot from them and kind of enjoyed that team environment. I would say that it wasn't anything like we have over here in Europe, but that's kind of how I started coaching. And then when I got a job from NA, I think the salary range for that job was, I can't say exactly because of legal reasons, but it's somewhere between 55 and 75K.
Yeah, it's a little jump.
Yeah. So it's like 20x, right? So at that point, I was like, oh, well, this is not that bad. This is, almost as much as a junior analyst, for a banking firm, banker or whatever, right? If not more. Because it was in USD, it was more actually. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So then I went to NA. Then I went to this North American org. And I guess, yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
It's like really deep because I think most of the people just think like, oh, he probably played League of Legends and now he's a coach because it's like the traditional way. But I think it's a really interesting story, like for everyone to know that you don't need to even need to be like playing from season 1, like from beta.
I just had to go back and remember because it was so long ago. I probably could have TLDR'd that in like 3 sentences, but the point was I didn't think that I would be a coach, didn't want to be a coach, dabbled in it, ended up coaching the CEO, then ended up working for ESL, then ended up getting a pro job, and it happened. It just happened.
Yeah.
And then I liked it, so I stayed.
And now going more for the day-to-day like routine, let's think that you're during the LEC, and what will be like your day-to-day routine with the player, with the team or organization?
Yeah. So a lot of work is done, I would say, outside of the office, in my own time. But generally speaking, in terms of team schedule, players will come around 11:45 to 12 p.m. So 11:45 a.m. in the morning to about 12 p.m. I will come in around 11 o'clock, or if not a bit earlier every day. And I will prepare either presentations, or I will go over some notes, or I will go over some previous scrims just to make sure that I'm prepared on the day. Sometimes I will also call other regions like Vietnam or like Korea or whatever, the connections that I have, and kind of talk to them about how their scrims are going and what they're playing over there and what they think. North America as well, sorry. And then I'll go over like what I think we need to work on for that day. And then from about 11:45 to 12:05 to 12:15, around there, we eat as a team. Obviously, some people eat faster than others. Then they will go and chill for a bit, and then we have a meeting from around 12:15 p.m. to about 12:45 to 12:50, where we'll talk about maybe an important concept, maybe some system, maybe about performance, maybe just anything that we think is important, maybe from the previous days of scrims, maybe about the enemies that we're playing this week, right? It could even be draft meeting, it could just be anything, but that time schedule is generally booked for that. And then from 1 o'clock we'll scrim. So scrimming is like practicing with another team.
Yeah, for everyone doesn't
for
know.
about 3 hours, so about 3 to 4 games. And then from 1 to 4 we'll play, and then 4 to 5 we'll rest. It depends on the team. Sometimes our rest will be 30 minutes, sometimes it'll be 20, sometimes it'll be 45. From a performance standpoint, we try to rest at least 45 minutes between scrim set 1 and scrim set 2, because we want to make sure that people are able to stay focused. And at that point, probably after game 2, you're maxed out on cognitive
it just goes down.
load, right? So by game 3, you're already a bit tired. So we try to get 45 minutes in. Sometimes it'll be half an hour because maybe a review went too long, or maybe something happened where we have some delays. 20 minutes is worst case scenario. We really try to avoid that and avoid that as much as possible. And in this time, they'll either do some meditation or rest or take a nap or whatever they want to do. Take a walk, especially if it's been a frustrating day. Then when they're back around 5 o'clock, we will start scrim set 2 for another 3 games. And sometimes you finish earlier, sometimes you finish later, but generally you finish around 7:45 to 8 o'clock. And then in which afterwards you would have dinner and then go home. Now, this is not the end. Generally, if you finish earlier around 7, you will do some other meeting. If not, you'll go home and have an earlier day to practice on your own. So this will be, solo queue. This will be whatever you want to do. Generally, players tend to play solo queue, but we leave it up to them, because, they should have an understanding of where they're sitting at or what they can handle. And if it's been a very long and tiring day, rest is also important. So generally speaking, they will come home and do that. And for us, so for coaches, I will come home and I'll have dinner with my partner. So I will actually not have dinner with my team. I'll make sure to go home and have dinner with my partner. Then I'll generally play solo queue or watch VODs until about 11 every single day. Then from 11 to about 1 or 2, I will do one of the two, which is watch VODs or play solo queue if I haven't done the other. If I feel like I've had enough for the day, I'll spend some time with my partner. And then around 1 to 2 a.m., generally speaking, I will try to go to bed. It depends on if it's possible. And it depends on if I'm disciplined. I would say that the correct way to do things would be to actually get whatever work I need to get done by max like 9. I would say that's what I recommend to coaches. But sometimes you find it very hard to disconnect, and that's just generally how my schedule goes. If I feel like I need to do way more, or if I feel like that I'm really behind in certain things, I will generally work until 11:30 to 12. And then afterwards, I will take some time off.
Yeah, and this would like the typical. Yeah, and if let's say that when the teams need to go to the States to play, like if you are super weak or I assume that this will be like from, well, in this case this year we are playing Monday also, but from Tuesday to Friday, if I'm not wrong.
It's so it used to be Monday to Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday game days.
Yeah,
But
but
now it
this,
changed to 3 game days. So I think I believe it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday game days, and then no, it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice. So we had three practice days. And when I say rest, by the way, there's a difference between me playing solo queue for fun versus me playing solo
yeah,
queue as a job. So a lot of the time when how I said I was delayed until 12, if I feel like I'm really behind, that would be either PowerPoints or meta reads or catching up on VODs. If I feel very stressed, if I play solo queue on top of that and you consider that work and I don't play for fun, then you're generally done like 3 or 4 a.m. So it really depends on the day and what you do. Generally though, I'll be done around 1, and that would go on for about 3 days of the week. So generally that would be about 3 days of the week. And the players have a similar schedule as far as I'm concerned. It's just instead of doing PowerPoints or watching VODs, a lot of the time they'll just play. They'll play and kind of study.
and improve mechanically
Yeah.
and
I mean,
then if they,
Korea is much worse. They do 1 to 4, then 5 to 8, then like 10 to 1,
yeah,
and then they play solo queue from 1 to 4, and they go to bed.
yeah, that's much more stressful. I think. And then if I'm saying that and then let's say that they have to go to to play to the states, what will be like would that day would change a lot? And I assume that there is any rest day, that a day that you don't do anything. I mean,
Oh,
maybe
on
the
the game
day
days?
yeah, the game days, and also if there is like the day before the games, you don't practice or just like do a more relaxed day, just reviewing bots and just talking about the games, or you just don't meet and players have free to do whatever they want.
I mean, my experiences have always changed depending on the team that I've been on. So when I was head coaching, it was different to when I was a strategic coaching, because it really depends on what your head coach wants. If you're playing an assistant role,
Yeah,
you kind of trying to empower them so that they can show their vision, or utilize their vision. For Peter, generally you're looking at some sort of like confidence day, or some sort of day where you will play what you play on stage on practice the day before the game day. So this is a Thursday. And you'll also have some time to go over a draft or go over the planning for the day after. The culmination of what you'll play on the stage will depend on how. Sorry, the what you'll play on stage will be based on the culmination of the practice that you had done the 2 days prior, and also dependent on like meta and players as well. So that's that. And then on stage day, so the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, generally you will have warm-ups as well. So you'll be in the office about 4 to 6 hours before the actual stage time. And you'll play warm-ups, you'll eat, and then you'll talk draft, and then you'll have some rest time, travel time. And LEC requires teams to be there a few hours before the actual match. So then you'll be on studio, and then you'll rest a bit, and then do the pre-game routine. But you're generally looking at an 8 to 9 hour day in these days.
and there is a rest day after the
Yeah.
game days, or like, do you give like, okay, it's Monday, we play it all the weekend, so see you Tuesday, do whatever, like free to the players, they can also come to the office, or they can just stay at home, or they do want to travel.
Well, once again, this depends on the region, but in Europe, generally you have an off day after your third game day. I think this is in general good in a way, because 3 days of stage games, especially in this format, which
Yeah,
I don't think was great, leads to really, really high cortisol levels, so stress levels, really high adrenaline, and obviously very different sleep schedule. Because generally you want to be waking up at least an hour and a half before you come to work, right? So you'd be waking up around 10 o'clock, 10:20 maximum as a player. And you would probably sleep, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. Whereas when you go on stage, because of all the nerves, generally you won't fall asleep until, 4, 5 a.m. in the morning, at least. Depends on how late the games were,
yeah,
depends on that kind of stuff. But, a lot of the time, especially for players that need more sleep, a lot of the time it leads to sleep schedules changing wildly 2 to 3 hours. And your day begins much later as well. So say you have a 6 p.m. game. This is like the earliest possible game. You're still in the office by probably at least 2 p.m. versus 11:45. So there's that gap there. So people take that off day to kind of reset and kind of just kind of reflect on the week, I guess.
And complementing this, the rest, and for the players that are very stressed, how do you also like plan like do they do physical training? Do you like establish the nutrition routine? Because do you think this is a very important part? I assume also that it depends on every team. They will give some importance or not. But
I mean,
what do you think about it?
there's a difference between what's actually important versus what teams find important / what a team does. So
Yeah,
every team I've been at has been different. Most of them care about nutrition. I would say, physical training, physical movement is an incredibly important aspect of general happiness levels.
yeah,
Getting sun and exercise is just incredibly important, especially when it comes to focus as well. Just getting some, having a general level of fitness, all these kind of things matter. Nutrition is massively important. There are some slow digesting foods versus fast digesting foods, things that spike your blood sugar, obviously not great. If you eat a lot of candy, this is not great. Had many players in the past that do this and present as well. So your nutrition is massively important. We have a full-time chef that cooks us lunch and dinner, but some teams don't have it. In 2020, as I said, my yearly salary was 3,000 euros. I think it was actually less than that. So, we cannot afford a full-time chef. So I spent around 20,000 Australian dollars, so about 15,000, 14,000 euros of my own money so that my players had good nutrition. So I would buy them food and I would buy groceries and I would order food and all this kind of, I would get up at 5 a.m. to cook. So it really depends on what you think is important. But when it comes to performance, there is without a doubt in my mind, nothing more important than what you put in your body and movement. A challenge that we faced this year is that even though Heretics have that full-time chef and all that, it's incredibly difficult to fit in an adequate amount of physical exercise as well as performance-related things within a 3-day training schedule.
yeah,
As a strategic coach, it was just not possible for me to fit it in, or fit it in as much as I felt like was needed, right? Because I'm a very big performance guy. In 2020, I worked with one of the best performance coaches in the world, Nam Baldwin, works with championship football teams, works with world champion surfers, also worked with Adamus before, and then obviously Rob this year, probably the best I've had so far. But even then, it's just not possible. So it's a matter of, okay, if I give this one day to do movement, to get them out of the sun, to do some sort of team activity, can we still win? And
how will how will this? You have to think, how will this affect to their performance? Because they will be. It's obvious that they will be like better, and it will be better for them, but also can be worse for them. So it's like double-handed.
The problem was, I think you could get away with it maybe with a very strong, like if you had a very strong roster, you could maybe get away with it. But when I first joined Heretics, it was meant to be a 2-year project. I stress it was meant to be a 2-year project. So this meant a lot of the talent that we're bringing on were developmental, right? So the actual skill level between them and the top 4 or 5 LEC players / teams in their roles were significant. The gap was quite significant, I would say. So to be able to compete or even play like a decent game against them, you will
need like the double time that the top teams need.
But the problem is like when you have this, they also had issues with performance related things too, right? Managing stress. So it's both important. And where Rob was really good this year, so our performance coach Rob was really good this year, was he tried to find solutions to that. So for example, before our matches on game day, we would try, do some football exercises, do some hand-eye coordination exercises. He would try to get people to walk between scrim sets in training days. But it really isn't enough compared to where we want them to be, right? You want them to be going to gym 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
You want them to be having good nutrition. And some of the players would do it. For example, Yankos had a really good routine around this, but most of the players were not able to fit it in or couldn't really get to it. And generally, this kind of stuff is better done when enforced by the team. So yeah, I would say there are things that we want to do. There are things that are important that should be done, but wasn't really possible this year.
Yeah, obviously, everyone knows that that these are a very important part, but as you mentioned, it's very difficult to fit it in a at least how the ecosystem and how all the teams work, and it's very difficult to fit it. And are you do you also are in charge of the strategy for the recruiting the players, or are in your like in is a part of your job, or is
In
like
terms of performance,
no, in terms of recruiting
recruiting.
players? Yeah, sorry.
I mean, I didn't really have that much of a say in terms of recruiting players this year. I had an input, but it wasn't like anywhere close to my decision. That was mostly done, I think, by Alva and Peter. But off season sometimes isn't just about who you want. It's about what you can get as well with the budget and with like how teams are formed. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, no. And a lot of the teams that I've been on in the past, I hadn't really had a say. So Chiefs, I had the say. Golden Guardians, I had no say. Vitality, I came to a team that was already half dismembered, to be honest with you. Generally, like the roles that I've had to play in teams were to come in and just like fix things and to like to build out structures. That's kind of been my specialty, especially around like short-term improvement, like instant improvement. That's something that I think I have a talent for. So for example, in Vitality, we had the top laner was kicked when I joined. A new top laner was recruited, then demoted to academy 8 weeks into the season. So we had to change probably our most important player 8 weeks into the season. And then our jungler had recently been demoted. So his mental was obviously not great, destroyed. So that's kind of been my experiences. And with Rogue as well, it was the same. Like the team atmosphere wasn't the best. And we brought in a jungler from Korea. I think he had a decent split with Damwon. I think they did good, but he was a substitute jungler. And then before then, he had pretty poor results. And then we had a 80 carry who had just come 10th. That was the situation. And the team kind of mood at the time was not good for sure. And how things are. So that's always been kind of my experiences. I've never really got to build a team from ground up except for the Chiefs. And that's something that I'd really love to try again, actually. But yeah, to answer your question, no.
Oh, perfect. So, and then, I mean, it's been very great talking about, like, until now we are still talking about the past, like how you get there, what I did, a lot of the present, like what do you do daily.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about the future. Like, how do you see yourself in like 2 years from now?
I mean, I don't know. It really depends on what the esports industry can do, like what the esports industry will offer me. For example, I'd really like an opportunity to either be a general manager for a team, like I did at Chiefs, or a head coach position at a high level. I really, really want to win another championship. And I want to be a part of the process of building infrastructure out. But I'm not sure if teams will give me an opportunity to do that. There's a lot of talented people out there. And obviously, I have my flaws as well. There's a lot of things that I've been working on personally. So I can never really tell you where my future is.
I think it's very difficult in this post ecosystem to know how it. I mean, probably if I would ask you this question like 5 years ago, I mean, you were being a strategic coach, and I ask you, how do you see yourself in 5 years? And you were like, maybe this doesn't work anymore, or maybe I think no one could expect like this growth
Yeah, I mean, in terms of
And
an esports career, I would want to be, you know, one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the world. That's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. I want to have that experience of building a team. It's not just about like what I want; it's about what teams want to. Do they want certain type of culture, certain type of person, and what kind of people do they want to hire in general? So these are all questions that I do have myself, actually. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to be there, and that's kind of my goal at the moment.
yeah, and then also talking about, you mentioned it before to me, like Parablet.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
want to explain, look at it about a bit, but I think that you will be the best one to explain it, and because I assume that this will be like some of these future plans.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Parable is right now is not what it's going to be in 6 months. Basically, we're an edutech coaching esports tech company in a way. Like my co-founder is Evan. He is a senior designer at Expedia. He has a lot of technical knowledge. He can also code, and he, I think, worked with Google and Apple in the past as well. So he's the other half that I absolutely needed. What we're really trying to build is an entirely new platform when it comes to learning. When you look at esports coaching right now, at the pro level, it's not structured, and every coach has their own methodology. But there's also proven things that every coach should be doing. For example, if you look at esports reviews and coaching in general in a team environment, they do what's called a deficit-based learning model, where they'll just tell you what you're doing wrong, every single thing that you're doing wrong. And you compare that to traditional sports, you could probably go on a football field and talk about how each player is making a mistake, their position, where they should be standing, how they're communicating, how they're even moving or running, right? But they don't. So that's really strange that we do that in esports. And then also in terms of like structure and having a curriculum and having a certain methodology, nothing like that in esports exists, even at the pro level. It's even worse for the casual user base. So what we're doing is we're training our own coaches in performance, in customer service, in what language they should be using, how lectures and things should be kind of structured. We are making lectures and classrooms similar to like traditional education 5 times a week for each role. And on top of that, we're doing VOD review sessions. And then we're going to implement performance coaching and physical therapy elements and coaching as well. And then we have a general lecture about like mentality and all this kind of stuff on top of that. And that's kind of how we're doing things at Parable compared to, you know, you go on like a site like Medify, you pay this guy X amount of dollars an hour and he teaches you for an hour in his way, right? About the game.
Yeah.
So it's very different. Like we have a very structured way of doing things. And then the other thing is like, generally these sites take commission. So if you go to a site like Medify, they'll take about 15% commission from the coach. And so the coach is going to raise prices as well. So it's bad for the consumer and the coach. It's like an extra tax. And all they do really is just market the platform as a coaching website. They don't train their coaches. They don't have expectations. They just hire as many as possible. And people with high reviews tend to get more clients. Whereas like we're very different in that regard. And instead of paying $20, $30 an hour, minimum, you pay 50 cents per hour with us. So for the cost of less than a Spotify subscription, I want to be able to give users the experience of not being stuck in one place and learning new concepts and learning from professional coaches. And because, you know, we run classes in aggregate, we're able to keep costs low forever. And everything is done online. So what we're really going to be doing at Parable is we're going to create this online gamified coaching ecosystem. We'll have our own streaming and learning platform outside of Discord. At the moment, we're just testing things on Discord, but we'll have it outside of Discord. We'll be gamifying the concept. There will be like levels and experience and little avatars that you can level up by attending these classrooms. And you will be able to do it all for like $10 a month. Probably less if you're a collegiate student, even less if you're from like Bangladesh or something, right? So that's kind of the goal of what we're doing. And it's widely different from any other coaching website out there because I think it's founded by coaches.
Yeah.
And it's built by champions, people that have won titles before. and understand traditional sports as well. And it's done with the intention of not just teaching esports. Like what we want to do is we want to create this platform and then go to everything. Like we want to teach math on this platform. We want to teach everything on this platform, every esport. So yeah, so that's where we're at. But obviously nothing that I've said here is like set in stone or done yet. We've just done Parable 2.1, which is just the website. We're redoing the website. And then in 2.2, 2.3, you're going to start seeing these changes. It's fine.
Sorry, I just got
Yeah.
fun.
I mean, I hadn't really prepared to talk about Parable too much, but basically, yeah, we're a coaching website. We teach games. It costs basically nothing. All our coaches are trained. All our coaches are either challenger or top professionals. And I pay my coaches a salary instead of these sites that just pay based on commission. So it's good for the consumer. It's good for the coach. It's good for everyone involved. And you said that Esportian does collegiate education for like esports gamers, for gamers in esports, right? And scholarships and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
I believe there's 700 programs in the US. We're probably going to give out over 10,000 memberships to Parabled over the collegiate United States like collegiate kind of system in the next 5 months. So it's going to be in every collegiate system that will take us.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's pretty interesting, and to see that you have like you're not stick to the okay, I'm just head coach, strategic coach, and like you have something parallel going on, and thinking that when if at some point this ends, I have something else to work on, and also to apply what you're learning through this year, to like being able to apply it and to show it to everyone. I think it's pretty interesting. And yes, like you mentioned, as Esportian, do you know? Have you heard of these like esports programs, the scholarships? Are you aware of them?
I have heard a little bit. I looked into collegiate myself, and basically you connect the bridge between European like players and esports
Yeah,
scholarship programs
not
in the
only
United States.
Europeans, also like
Or
from Latin
global.
America, from also
Yeah.
have some from so from Asia also. So
Yeah.
it's like worldwide for saying it. And you as you mentioned, we give them this bridge to like we are working on contact all the unis and to know their programs,
Yeah.
what do they want, so we when we have these students, we can say, okay, we have this student with who is this rank or who is this interesting in this game, and this uni who is also like who has this same game with an esports club, so we who offers a scholarship, so we can bring the student to the uni, and so the student can keep playing and can also can study, which is very important.
Yeah. I mean, I would
So
assume you're very similar to an agency, right? From
yeah,
a business model perspective, you would act as an intermediary. So you'd be very similar to like agencies.
yeah,
You take a small percentage and then you
yeah. We also work
facilitate all
also
that.
with like we also work with traditional like scholar agencies like Keystone Mile, who have been like bringing students to the USA like for traditional
Yeah.
sports like foot like soccer, basket. So we also work with them.
In a
We
way,
help
this is
each other.
actually part of what we want to do too. Like not collegiate, but the entire Parable ecosystem was designed to be a complete package, not just like game coaching, right? So we actually acquired a tournament organizer in esports, and we're going to use that to also be able to play out like games with fellow Parable students and whatnot, right? So we have a playing platform too, and then eventually the really, really top students, we want to create a pathway to pro through that whole program. So it is in a way similar, but very different because you're focused on like education.
Because we also want to the people so also
Have a
for the
degree.
parents who see their
Yeah.
kids like they just not wasting their time just
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
video games, to see that if obviously the main goal of the student is to always to get pro and to get to high level, but to
Yeah.
have a background to foresee, okay, if this doesn't go, I still have my studies, my background, so I can still or at some or if I get it at some point I can end my career as an esport player and start more traditional work, or because I have the knowledge. I don't see myself lost because I just left the school because I was very good, but now I'm not good, and now I can't still live from it. So
Yeah.
I it's very difficult to start studying at maybe late.
I mean, I think what Esportian is doing is great because it provides a backup and also a potential future through esports. And I think that this sector will grow for sure. So it's really amazing that you guys are doing that as well.
So then, for finishing, what would you tell to all those gamers that are are students, not only students as are also gamers that are just pro players or no, that also want to create a path into esports?
I mean,
Like, what would you be
don't, I mean,
your advice to them?
I always say the same thing in all my interviews. I don't think I was like the cleanest I wasn't very prepared with my answers, but basically, like, I'll just say what I said before, which is don't do what I did. Don't just like drop out of university and pursue an esports career like randomly. What you really want to be doing is understanding realistically where you are. If you are a prodigal player hitting rank 1 at age 15, you're being scouted by 10 different professional teams, you know for a fact that you have a future in esports. It's very different. But if you're, in your mid 20s trying to pursue a pro player lifestyle, pro coach lifestyle, it's really, really, really hard. I think there are over 16,000 players and coaches throughout the European ecosystem alone in the pro scene. And out of the 16,000, I would say it wouldn't be over a couple hundred that make a decent living, right? So you're competing with the best of the best of the best. And this doesn't just include players and coaches. This includes like support staff and managers too. So always have a backup plan, be responsible. Playing esports, whether or not you're at a collegiate level or, whether or not you're an amateur level, is an experience in itself that you can take away for a lifetime. That's a memory that you can take, and it's okay to be satisfied about that. Just be responsible. Coaching is not all coaching, and like just competing in esports is not all glim and glamour like people say.
Yeah, that's
It's
why I told you,
actually
like, they
it's
only
a
see like the players playing, and like
yeah
if you win, it's very. I assume it's very cool and everything is cool, but they don't see all the hard work and how they've done to get there, and
yeah. I
and
mean,
also they don't see like how when the team doesn't go good.
for me, for example, if you're not a pro player, right, and you're trying to make it into coaching, I spent tens of thousands of euros of my money. I was literally working 100-hour weeks. I was getting up at 5 a.m. You can double check this with any player that worked with me in 2020. I was getting up at 5 a.m. to cook for the players so they have better nutrition. I cooked like 10 meals of Korean food, 10 meals of Western food so they can choose or whatnot. Not 10, I think it was like 8 meals or something like that. But you get the point. And I was being compensated 300 euros a month to
Yeah,
do this, guys. And this is not the org's fault. I said I didn't care about money, and the bonus they tried to give me over 10,000 euros, I gave to a player, right? Because their employment is limited. And the only reason I did what I did, however responsible I said it was I was really confident that whatever I did, whether or not I work at McDonald's or wherever, I could succeed. Now that I look back on it and I've matured a bit, I can guarantee you that's not the case. Sometimes I think people get lost in this fantasy that they're different because we all live life from our perspective. But the truth is, like, everyone's kind of the same. So if you want to, if you know for a fact you have a future, sure, but don't expect esports to be this amazing, glamorous lifestyle. Of course, I don't work anywhere near as much as I used to, probably around the 50, 60-hour mark. But it's still hard work. It's not just playing games with mates. It's very, very far gone from, I would say, the old past where people used to have gaming houses and you'd hang out all the time and you'd have like SeeEl PCs and you just play games for a living. It's really not like that. It's a hard life. And it's super competitive. And if you're not good enough, you'll lose your job. So yeah, just think twice. But yeah, the industry is really cool. And being a part of it at the collegiate level is also really fun as well. So do what you want to do, I guess.
yeah. So thank you for your time, for everything, for answering everything. I think it's it's been a very good information, and to see
Yeah.
to know from your side, because of this, from what I say, that people don't see, like they just see like like the top of the iceberg, and they don't see like all the thing that is behind, and all the work that needs to be done to be there.
Yeah. I mean, you need to really have something else that some other drive in you other than money or fame or playing games. I think to be in esports. For example, I have this startup, right? We have I think 21 members of like in our staff. We have 21 members in our staff, and I was not able to look after them because my priority is in competing. My co-founder did that for me. My priority will always be to try win another championship while I'm in esports. That's the kind of life and mindset that you have to have, even though you have the so-called backup plan, right?
Yeah.
For me, Parabled is something of a personal pet project to bring value to other people, right? And if you don't have that kind of hunger and drive, I think it's so hard to outperform other coaches and other people because they want it so much as well. You need to want it so much more, right? And a lot of the time that comes down to just basically shitting on yourself and dropping all ego and just like trying to learn. You know, the people that called me shit and retard and all scammers or all this stuff that I had heard, you need to be able to go to these people and say, hey, you can think what you want, but I was wondering if you can tell me why you thought that. That is super hard to do. And honestly, like, what's the point in putting up with that unless you love competing, right? So that's what it was for me. And I hope that a lot of people through your program find more reasonable methods of kind of being able to compete, doing what they love, and also have a degree.
Well, so, and in this, like, I would say, wish you the best of the lucks, like, whenever you do, like,
Thank you.
from now on. I think that the best way to end is, like, as we say, like in gamers, like, good luck, have fun.
Yeah.
Like,
Thank you.
bye.
Appreciate it.